We're in a 2008 Honda Odyssey. We're going to do a plug-and-play remote starter that activates from the OEM Remote. The years that it will cover are the 2005 through 2010 Honda Odyssey. They should be the same job no matter what year, as long as you're between those years. We're going to go ahead and get started. We're going to remove the 3 screws from the underside of the steering column cover plastic in order to take the plastic off. We're going to remove a screw from this location, and we're going to remove the Phillips screw right here that's under the tilt lever. We're going to go ahead and lock the tilt lever in order to get to this screw. We're going to apply pressure to the seam with our thumb to start the column splitting so we can take off the plastic. We're going to apply pressure to the seam and it will open up the column enough to get a plastic tool in. Now we can apply pressure while we turn the tool and we can get the column to split open. We're going to go ahead and we're going to apply pressure to this side while we pick up on the plastic. And we can get the column to split without breaking the tabs here. It can be a little rough, a lot of pressure on the sides while you're separating, and they should pop without breaking. I'm going to go ahead and we're going to remove the lower plastic cover. We're going to spread the cover so it'll go over the ignition switch. And then what we're going to do is drop the lever here, and we're going to go ahead and we're going to try to get this plastic out. On some of the Odysseys it's harder than others. I don't know why. What makes it harder? It seems like the maybe 8 through 10 is harder to get this off than up to 2008, from 5 to 8. So we're just going to go ahead and we're going to work this column plastic so it comes off, being careful not to break any of the ears. So we've got the steering wheel in the full up position, and we've got the lever loose on the bottom. You may be able to get in without taking it completely off, but yeah, so we're able to get this off. There's a plate in here that moves around that you want to have snapped in when you reassemble. So it can be a little bit of a challenge to get that on and off on some of the years. This one wasn't too bad. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to be working at the ignition plug of the vehicle and the immobilizer plug of the vehicle. So we're looking up at the underside of the steering column. We're going to unplug the ignition plug. I had to position it this way so that this lever is not in the way of the video. We're going to push the release clip, wiggle the plug, and remove it from the ignition. We're going to plug our ignition T-harness plug into the ignition switch. Whenever I'm working on the ignition switch, I like to support the back while I'm pressing, so I don't break anything, no matter what the vehicle is. So we've gone ahead and we've plugged in the ignition plug. We're going to just lock the steering column now, pushing this lever up. We're going to plug the vehicle's ignition plug that we removed from the ignition switch into the other side of our T-harness. We're going to make sure all plugs lock firmly. And we're going to be having to put this back together, so we want to be conscious of how we're routing our wires, because we're going to have to get the steering column cover back on. We're going to install our immobilizer portion of the T-harness. This is the immobilizer plug that we're going to use. There's a plug next to it that's similar, but it is not the same plug, and the device will not plug into this plug. Another thing is, this could be either green or white. On this particular vehicle, it's green. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to unplug it, and we're going to plug our T-harness immobilizer end into the immobilizer, making sure it locks in, and then we're going to plug the plug that we removed from the immobilizer into our T-harness end. Both harnesses are installed. We're going to advance to grounding the system. To ground our module, we're going to go ahead and we're going to put the harnesses through the opening under the dash. Now we're going to ground the black wire on the heavy gauge harness that goes to the ignition plug to a screw up on the dash right here. So we're going to route this black wire up from the bottom so it comes out here. So we're going to remove the side cover. There's a little groove right here. We're going to put our pick tool in and then our plastic tool, and we're going to pop the cover off. Right here there's a 10mm bolt that we're going to remove, and we're going to ground right to this location. So we're going to come up from the bottom with our ground wire, and we're going to pull it out the side of the dash, and we're going to attach it right here under this screw. So we're going to remove the bolt. You want to be careful because there's a module up under here that's going to want to move on you. So you can reach behind it and hold the module while you take this out. And we're going to go ahead, we're going to reinstall this screw into the bracket that it originally was in. System is grounded. Now I know you're going to be tempted to use this, but you don't want to use any bolts with plastic. You want metal on metal, no plastic involved in the ground connection. The camera is on the floor of the vehicle next to the gas pedal, looking over at the fuse box above the driver's kick panel. We're going to be making connections at the BCM here. I'm going to go over the connections. Okay, so there is a data wire connection. This connection is responsible for sending commands to the vehicle. And it is required and very important. The system will not function if this is not connected correctly. These two wires right here are going to interrupt an ignition signal, keeping the OEM remote active while the engine is running. I'm going to show you exactly what to do here. Okay, one of the plugs that we're going to be working on is right here. So we're trying to do this vehicle without taking all this dash stuff off here. So I'm just going to go ahead, I'm going to separate this plug from this push clip right here where it's taped to a push clip, and the push clip holds it so that it's not flopping around. If you remove it, I don't think it would be flopping around anyway, but they have it secured. So we're going to go ahead, I'm just going to slice the tape right here, the little piece of tape, and I'm going to unplug the first two plugs here. So I'm going to go ahead and unplug this plug with the long wire, and then our target plug that we're going to be working on is right here, the one furthest back or closest to the driver's seat. I'm going to go ahead and we're going to unplug that. I'm going to pull on it a little bit, and then we're going to go ahead and we're going to remove the tape from here. This is all the working room we're going to have. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to clear these wires off so that we can get to the wires that we need to get to. So I'm just using my pick tool to start the tape, and we're going to go ahead and remove it. You want to be careful slicing on the wires because you don't want to do damage to the wires. So if you're going to slice, just do it gently and make sure you're not slicing the wires. Okay, so now we have our wires exposed. It's going to be a lot easier to get to. We're going to be dealing with two wires on this plug. I'm going to show you the wires. We've got the plug unplugged from the BCM or the fuse box, whatever you want to call it here. And we're going to be using two wires that are required for the job. And then there's an optional parking light connection on this plug also. I'm going to show you how to identify the wires. So now when we're looking at these plugs, the orientation is always from the back where the wires enter. So we'd be looking at it from the back where the wires enter, and we use the clip to orientate ourselves so that it matches the diagram. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to give you a closer view of the wires. Okay, we're looking at the schematic that'll come with the system, and the schematic is for doing the job with no T-harnesses at all. We make the harnesses here in-house. This isn't something that Fortin pre-makes. We put it together using Fortin parts. So right here we're looking at the plug from the back. So we're going to be dealing with the ignition wire. It's yellow on the corner here. Looks like pin 9. And then we're going to be dealing with the CAN bus single here at pin 4. So it's telling us the color, green and red and yellow on the vehicle. That's what we're looking for. And we're going to go ahead and we're going to do the required steps on these wires. So we're going to interrupt the ignition and connect to the CAN bus single. Later in the video, we're going to make a parking light connection here also on the same plug at pin 19. So we're going to go ahead and get started. Okay, so we're looking at the back and we've matched the diagram to the plug. And you see I have the green wire with the red stripe at pin 4 pulled. I have the ignition wire, the yellow at the corner pulled. And then I have the parking lights also pulled. I'm going to give you a close-up and show you. So right here, that's our CAN bus single at pin 4. So if you count the pins over from this side, clips in the upright position, 1, 2, 3, 4. There we go. And our ignition wire, it's on the end. It's a no-brainer. Yellow on the end of the plug, top row, right here. Now, over here for the parking lights, we're going to go 3 in from the end. Right here. 1, 2, 3. Third one in. There's a wire at the end. There's an empty pin. And then this is our parking light wire. I'm going to go back to that, but I wanted to show you the location while we were doing the close-up. So we're going to make a connection to this, and then we're going to cut this wire. I'm going to show you how to do that. Okay, on our harness we have 3 wires. We have a yellow-red, a yellow-green. This is for our ignition interruption, and this is our single CAN wire. We're going to go ahead and we're going to make our single CAN connection using what's called a posi tap. This wire will allow us to make our connection without cutting or splicing into the wire. It's a toolless, solderless connection that works pretty good. First thing we're going to do is we're going to unscrew the barrel of the connector. We're going to have a little piece like this with a groove in it. We're going to put this groove over our target wire, and then we're going to screw it back together. This pin is going to pierce the wire. So we're going to go ahead and do that. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to slip the posi tap over the wire, the end with a groove in it, and we're going to screw it back together. The needle's going to pierce the wire. Make sure you don't cross thread it. We're going to screw it back together. We're going to crank it down, but we're not going to go crazy. We're just going to snug it tight like that. It's on. So this is going to provide our connection point here. We're going to take our brown wire. We're going to strip 1/8 to 1/4 of an inch off the wire. Usually I put a little mark here already, so it should be kind of ready for you to just pull off the insulation. Now we're going to go ahead and we're going to loosen the collar here. There's another little piece on the end. We're going to loosen it like about a turn and a half. Now we're going to take the incoming strands of wire and we're going to push them in. You'll feel the wire bottom out, and then you'll push it a little more. It'll go in a little deeper, and then you want to tighten up the collar. You get it in, and then you tighten the collar. And then you can give it a pull test. Pull on it, and it should stay in there. So that's what it looks like when it's together. You can take it apart. You can take it off. You can move it around. It's a reusable connector. So if you're going to do that, you want to just strip it again. And I kind of didn't like the connection I had. I'm going to strip a little bit more and loosen this up. And make sure you feel it bottom out. And then push it more. You should feel it go in deeper. And then tighten it. And give it a pull test. The next thing we're going to do is interrupt the ignition wire. You're going to want to stay back off of the plug. You can pull on these wires a little bit and get a little bit out of there. See, I've pulled that much out by just pulling on it gently. So now we're going to stay back from the plug. We're going to cut the wire. We want to be comfortable, have enough wire on both sides. We want to have enough wire to put it back together if we need to be able to solder to it or whatever. So never cut close to the plug. So stay back, comfortable on both sides of the connection. We're going to strip. Now what this does is it turns off it interrupts the ignition, and it allows the remote to stay active while the engine is running. So it's cutting the signal, so it's not seeing that the car is running, so it's keeping the remote active, because you know the remote doesn't work while the engine's running on this vehicle. So we're going to take the yellow wire with a red stripe, and we're going to connect it to the piece of wire we cut that's closest to the plug. So I would call this the plug side of the cut. And we're going to twist it good. We're going to make sure it's mechanically secure. That means that it's connected with or without a wire nut or crimp cap. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to twist this one, getting a nice good connection. And now we're going to put a wire nut on this and tighten it up. Now I'm using a wire nut trying to keep it toolless. You can use a crimp cap, you can solder it, you can do whatever you'd like. But this kit's going to come with 2 wire nuts. If you think the wire nuts are going to come off, tape them on. Okay, so I have a wire nut. I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to put it on and just twist it on. I mean, everybody knows how to put a wire nut on. If it doesn't go on, you may have to fold the wire, make it a little bigger, and put the wire nut on. Now, you know, if I'm out of wire nuts and I send crimp caps, these are little caps. You apply them and you crimp them on. So you could either use like a crimp cap or wire nut, whatever you like. Or like I said, you can solder them. Now we also have a parking light connection. This is an optional connection. We have a brown wire that comes off of our ignition harness, and it has a fused output for positive trigger parking lights. With this job, we're setting it up for positive trigger parking lights at this plug. So I'm going to send a blue posi tap. It's a little big for this, but the gauge of the wire needs to be blue in order for it to fit down in the collar properly. So we're going to do the same thing. We're going to go ahead, we're going to unscrew the posi tap. We're going to put the wire in there and just, you know, try to keep the wire centered in the groove while you screw it back together, making sure you do not cross thread the tap. And we want that tap, the blue tap, on the red wire with a black stripe, identified as the parking light wire located at pin 19. I'm going to give you a closer look again at the end. So we're going to go ahead and loosen the collar. We're going to insert our wire, push it in. You'll feel it go in and bottom out. Tighten the collar up. Give it a pull test. We're going to go ahead and we're going to plug these plugs back in. So we've got our plugs back in. Don't forget to plug both of the plugs back in before you go any further. Our system is grounded. Everything's plugged in. We're ready to start the programming procedure. So we have our Evo device. On the top there's a program button here. We're going to be holding this program button down while we plug in the ignition harness portion of our T-harness. The 3 lights here, there's a red, a yellow, and a blue. They're going to alternate. We want to release when we have a red LED lit. So I'm going to show you what I'm talking about. We're going to go ahead, we're going to take the ignition plug. We're going to hold the program button down while we plug in the ignition plug. We do this, the lights will begin to cycle. When the red light is lit, we want to release the button. If we don't release the button, the lights will keep cycling. I'll show you again. And they'll repeat the cycle over and over until you let up on the button. So we're looking to let up on red. So I missed it that time. I'm letting it go around, letting up on solid red, red only. the second time it went around through the cycle. Now we're going to go ahead and be very conscious not to touch the button again. We're going to plug in the 20 pin. And again, we don't want to hold it to where we're going to push the button inadvertently while we're plugging in the rest of the plugs. So once we have the plugs plugged in, we're going to want to have the key to the vehicle ready. We're going to press and release the program button 2 times. 1, 2. The light's going to begin to flash. At this point, we're going to place the key in the ignition and turn the ignition to the run position. The light's going to flash rapidly. It's going to go out. The blue light will come on and flash rapidly. This is an indication that programming is complete. We're now going to shut the key off and remove it from the ignition. We can go ahead and we can test our remote starting system. So I'm going to activate the remote starter using the 3-lock activation sequence. Now we're getting a honk from the vehicle on the second and third press. This honk is coming from the vehicle. That's what it does when you lock the doors multiple times. Now, we've activated remote start. The engine will run for 15 minutes. If you want to turn the vehicle off, you can repeat the activation sequence. Now, I'm going to get into how to activate the remote silently using lock, unlock, lock. But this sequence can only be set during the initial programming. We can also activate the system silently if it is set for lock, unlock, lock activation. Pressing lock, unlock, lock will now trigger remote start. So on eBay, I may not be able to give you this choice. So if you're looking on eBay and you're going to buy it on eBay, make sure you read the description and make sure it's the activation method that you want. On eBay, it may just be lock, unlock, lock. If you go to the website and you purchase, there will be a drop-down menu to select which activation method you would want. So our engine is running on remote start. We've just activated. We can go ahead and we can still control the sliders with the OEM remote. You have to unlock the doors using the remote, and then we can go ahead and we can operate the sliders. Now I'm not going to get into operating the sliders with a cell phone controller or an aftermarket RF antenna kit. It can be done while the engine is running from the OEM remote, and that's all I will support. So I don't think you can operate the doors without making analog connections and having outputs that correspond to those connections done right at the switch. So, you know, if you're looking to do that, then this is not the system for you. So our system is set for lock, unlock, lock activation. To turn off the engine, you want to repeat whatever activation sequence your system is set for. So the system can be paired to aftermarket RF antenna kits. What I would suggest is using a single button, either a one-way or a two-way, whichever you prefer. If you're going to use the one-way, a good choice is the RFK411. It's a single button remote start controller. You can lock the doors by pressing and releasing the button 1 time. You can unlock the doors by pressing and releasing the button 2 times, and you can start the vehicle by pressing and holding. I believe the effective range is about 2,800 feet from this unit. It's a lower cost antenna kit, comes with 2 remotes. If you want to go to like the mile long range here, you would use the RFK 912. Now it's labeled RM912. It's got a couple different part numbers. Now this is a two-way. Does the same thing. You press and release the button 1 time, it locks the doors. Press and release twice, it unlocks the doors. Press and hold starts the vehicle. We can also connect the MyCar smartphone controller to the device. This is what I'm going to show you now in the video, how to connect the MyCar unit to the system in case you want to purchase it with a smartphone controller. I have other videos for pairing the RF antenna kits to the Evo 1. If you buy an antenna kit from me and you want to pair it to your device, you can text the number on your device and request that I send you the pairing video. I have every scenario pairing video there is, so I can send you a private video and you can pair the device yourself and be successful. We're going to install the MyCar smartphone controller. Now if you buy this as a kit, if you see the listing and you purchase it as a kit, I'm going to already pair the smartphone controller to the Evo 1. I'm going to show you how to plug it in. Another thing that we do is we prep the harness. So if you buy one, it's not going to look like this. There's a couple wires on here that you don't use, and then there's a change that has to be made in order for it to directly plug in. So we're going to go ahead and plug our pre-configured MyCar in. And again, if you buy it after the fact, you don't buy it as a kit, I have a video that'll tell you everything to do to configure and pair it to your device. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to plug our blue plug into the blue plug on the Evo next to the white plug that goes to the single CAN wire. So we're going to go ahead and plug into the blue 4-pin plug. When we do this, the MyCar is going to power up. It's going to look for cellular and GPS signals. The red light is an indication, GPS signal indicator, and the green light on there that you'll see come on is a cellular signal indicator. So what it's going to do, it's going to search for the signals and it's going to flash while it's searching. When it locks, it's going to go solid. So we're going to sit here and we're going to let it acquire a signal. Now one of the other things that I do is I preset the protocol if you buy it as a kit. So if you don't buy it as a kit and you're wanting to connect this, it's going to prompt you when you open the app to select your protocol. The protocol it uses is the Fortin protocol. So we're going to let the light go solid and we're going to go ahead and I'm going to show you how to use it. Okay, we have our smartphone app opened. It's the MyCar smartphone controller. It has a couple different brands. There's the Link-R, AudioVox has a piece. They're all the same thing with different skins. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to send a lock command. Doors are going to lock. The app is going to give us an indication, an audible and a visual indication that the doors are locked. We're going to go ahead, I'm going to send the command again so you can see the parking lights. And there's the vehicle reacting. We're going to go ahead and we're going to unlock the doors. And now we have, you know, our audible sound and our visual. And if you notice, there's the temperature in the vehicle. There's a voltage indicator, signal strength indicator. We're going to go ahead and we're going to start the engine. Sent the command. Now the engine is started. It's going to send the app a signal. The app is going to start a runtime countdown and show you that the engine is running. We can now shut the engine off if we decide we're not going to want the engine running. Okay, so we have our indications, and we can use the GPS tracking feature to locate the vehicle. And that's exactly where the vehicle is. So this, the first year of service with this unit is included in the purchase price. Each additional year is currently priced at $39.99 per year. There is an optional horn connection at the top of the steering column at the plug located right here. It's a green wire with a yellow trace. You can test it by grounding it, and it will activate the horn. I'm going to go over the stowage or the zipping up of the unit. So we routed our plugs up on top of this harness. It's hard to see. Gave us a little bit more room, I think, when we're going to go ahead and put this column on. And I'm going to show you the zip up location. So we're under the dash looking back towards the ignition switch. There's our harnesses coming down. Now we have them zipped up here loosely to the metal bracket, so it stays on that side of the bracket and doesn't get on the other side of the bracket. And then we used a 14-inch zip around that harness there to secure the unit up high. I'm going to cut the ends of the zips off, and we should be good with that.